Hey, good morning, everybody. Mike Shea, your Florida business broker. I wanted to very quickly share with you guys a conversation digitally that I had last night. So, I have a client from Mexico who's trying to buy a lawn care company and wants to buy one in Houston. I used to live in Houston, so I reached out to a former colleague whose brother owns a large landscaping company. I've known that for years, and periodically, I think twice in the last 16 years, the brother has called me, but never the owner, which is not uncommon. Um, Sometimes in the trades, people are afraid to talk to finance people, even though put our pants on the same as anybody else. And the question came across last night as to what was the multiple on a business doing $2 to $3 million in revenue. And my comment back was, it's the wrong question. This is a real uh, common problem we run into in valuation where business owners fixate on the revenue, and there is some legitimacy to it. You can look at revenue and go, yeah, it's worth a certain amount of money, right? Um, to people in the industry. The problem is at that level of $2 to $3 million, the majority of buyers have to go in and get bank financing, and the banks don't care about the revenue. I mean, they do, but what they really care about is the free cash flow that the business produces to A, pay their debt back, and B, provide for a living wage and handle the operating capital of the business. So let's just real quickly, and I'm going to send this video over. Let's real quickly go through how valuation is done and pull the comps. So reference the question here. This is only for Florida. There's a whole lot more that goes into valuation, but if we look at the industry in question, which happen to be lawn and landscaping, and we're going to pull businesses that have sold that were grossing a minimum of, let's say, $2 million or a maximum of $4 million, and see what the multiples were for that. So this is every landscaping company in the state of Florida of that size and scale that has sold. And you'll see that as a percentage of sales, there is a number, but it's wide ranging. You've got 1 all the way down to 0.37. And that's because the type of service that's provided, the type of customers within it, the way the owner runs a business in terms of labor, often impacts it. What we really want to focus on is this sold price to adjusted net. And even there, you're going to see there are some variances with regard to, how valuation is done. So, or what the business is worth, but keep particular attention to the sold price to adjusted net. So we want to kick out some of these anomalies. We want to kick out equipment sales. We want to kick out a supply store, irrigation, grading, tree services, specialized spraying, etc. Because we want an apple to an apple. We want, as close to a true comp as humanly possible. So we're going to rerun that average. And you're going to see, now you'll see this 5 here, that invariably probably had land involved in the transaction. In fact, I know it had land involved in the transaction. But you'll see here, look at the wide range of operating cash flows, adjusted nets against the revenue. But you will see normative inconsistency. So this guy here, in all likelihood, probably had laborers as a 1099, and probably that you would not see anymore. And I bet you, yep, it's the one I did years ago, where he had a really good margin, but he was using 1099 subs. Those days are long gone. The lawn industry has a high target for focus from the feds with regard to W2 enforcement. You're going to see the average is about a 2.9 to a 3 multiple, right? So a 2.9 to a 3 multiple for the average business between $2 and $3 million, about 2.7. They sold for about 1.5. The adjusted nets average about 550. So they sold for about a 2.9 to a 3 multiple. But you will see it changes. So you look at this guy in the same sampling, same, a decent sized revenue, but his cash flow is only 355. He sold for 1.8. Now, we don't know the details of the transaction. We don't know if there was heavy debt on the part of the owner, if it was a divorce. Those variables come to light. But I would tell you that the median average tends to be the correct number, and the median happens to be about a 3. Now, I happen to quote a 3. So Ed, when you get this video, you're going to see what I told you tended to be true. But ideally, when we go into and do the valuation, it's not just the numbers. Revenue concentration, management staff, the marketplace itself, supply and demand has a real impact. The demand of buyers to enter an area, like the gentleman that I'm working on, he's from Mexico City. He has an enormous company. He wants Houston because that's where his family wants to live. So that's going to create competition for a deal. And if you're priced right, you may be able to get more because of the demand of that buyer on a personal level. It's not as surgical as you might see at an M&A level transaction. So, this is kind of the stuff. So when you're calling me, yeah, revenue matters, but revenue is relative. And how I usually explain it is, if it costs you $1 million to do $1 million, your business is worth nothing. And if it was so easy to cut out the costs, somebody else would do it. So what people commonly get confused is like a venture capital model where the VC companies want to see that there's revenue growth, but that's not the only thing VC guys look at. They look at it and go, can I cut the costs and retain the revenue and the margin and gain the margin? And that's easier said than done sometimes. So that is valuation, reference, lawn care, and this is going out to somebody specifically.